Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. I hope you are well and doing great. The video on this topic have evolution, a historical perspective, contain instructive and educational content that are both shareable and easy to retain. So students, my topic is evolution, a historical perspective. Today our goals are pre-Darwin theories of change, Lamarck, an early proponent of evolution, early development of Darwin's idea of evolution and evidences, theory of evolution by natural selection, evolution thoughts after Darwin. Let's start. What is evolution? Evolution is a change in phenotypic or genotypic character with the passage of time. Evolution is a slow process that can take many thousand years, even million of years to happen. In this picture, we easily observe that how monkey transform into human. This is evolution. Our first goal is pre-Darwin theories of change. Darwin was not the first who studied on evolution. Before Darwin, many scientists presented theories which are based on evolution, such as the philosopher Empedocles. Philosopher Empedocles introduced the cosmogonic theory. According to this theory, everything which is present in the world are the combinations of four basic elements, and these basic elements are fire, earth, water and air. Then Aristotle presented a theory which is known as a scalar nature. The scalar nature range from the animate matter such as mineral as a lowest, then up to the plants, then animals, and the highest thing on the ladder are human. Aristotle also said that the lowest or the simplest matter cannot move, such as the mineral, while the other species or matters can easily move, like plant, animals and humans. Next, the George Lewis Buffon have a great study on comparative anatomy, especially on the vestigial organs. Before going to the comparative anatomy, we first discuss about the vestigial organ. Vestigial organs are the organs, tissues or cells in the body which are no more functional the way as they were in their ancestral form of trade. Comparative anatomy. Comparative anatomy is the study of body structure of different species of animals in order to understand their adaptive changes. In this diagram, we can easily observe the change in the bone of forelimbs of different species. The next one is the Erasmus Darwin. Erasmus was a grandfather of Darwin. He was greatly interested in common ancestor and even in the origin and changes in the species. He discussed his idea that his grandson elaborated on 60 years later, such as how life evolved from a single common ancestor. The next one is Lamarck. Lamarck introduced a theory which is known as the Lamarckism. He had a great work on animal classification and published a book known as the Philosophic Zoology and presented his theory known as Lamarckism in 1809. Our next goal is Lamarck, an early proponent of evolution. In this theory, Lamarck presented two main points. The first is use and disuse of organ, and the second one is inheritance of acquired character. According to the use and disuse of organ, the organ which are greatly used by an organism develop in size and organ disuse tend to become reduced. For example, webbed feet of aquatic birds, wings of kiwi and ostrich, appendix and coccyx in human. Appendix and coccyx have some functional role in their ancestor, but now they become reduced and are functionless. And the second one is the inheritance of acquired character. The variation in phenotype due to the use and disuse is the passed to the next generation. According to him, the organisms can pass its physical characteristics that parents acquired through use or disuse during its life. For example, a blacksmith have long arms because they use them continually against the resistance. He passed this character to his offspring. And the second one famous example is the giraffe. Lamarck gave another example of giraffe neck that the ancestral giraffe have a short neck, but with the time giraffe have long neck because the use of neck is high in their life, so liver and neck become modified and they pass this character to this offspring. In this diagram, we can easily observe that the ancestral giraffe have short neck, but with the passage of time evolution occurred. They become long-necked because they had great use of neck in the stretching to reach the higher leaves of the higher tree. Rejection of Lamarckism. Lamarckism was almost rejected because of no supporting evidence or powerful evidence. The point use and disuse of organ is almost acceptable, but the theory of inheritance of acquired character was totally rejected. This theory was rejected with the proper experiment by the August Weismann in 1870. He performed experiment of removing tail of 68 white mice and repeated over 20 generations and reporting that no mice were born without a tail or even with a short tail. From this experiment, the Weismann concluded that the change in somatic cells means the cells of the skin will not pass to the next generation. Only the change in germ cell will pass to the next offspring. The next goal is early development of Darwin's idea of evolution and evidences. Darwin is best known for his contributions to the science of evolution. The theory of Darwin is called Darwinism. He published his famous book by the name of Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection. In December 1831, Darwin set a voyage toward the HMS Beagle. Darwin had only two concepts in his mind at that time. First, the Earth and their inhabitants are only 6,000 years old and no change yet occurs. But during his voyage, he observed that the species had evolution. He studied mechanism of change for 20 years. He died without knowing the principle of genetics without supporting his theory. In the evidences of evolution, we will discuss about the geography and the fossils evidence. Geography. Before going to the voyage, Darwin had two ideas in their mind. The earth and inhabitants are 6,000 years old and no change yet occur. But when he studied the Lyell theory, the principle of geology, which is the developed theory of James Hunter uniformitarianism. What is uniformitarianism? The change due to the action of uniform and continuous processes in the earth crust during the geological history is called uniformitarianism. By reading this theory, he concluded that the earth is much older than 6,000 years because the evolution had occurred and for evolution the 6,000 years are not much enough because the evolution is a very slow process and it requires a lot of time. The next is fossils evidence. What is fossils? The dead remains of plant and animals and their imprints which are preserved in the rocks are called fossils. On HMS Beagle, Darwin spent some of his time in the pampas of Argentina. In this land, he found two types of fossils. Fossils which had similarities with the animals of Argentina and animals which are totally different from the species of Argentina. First, fossils different from other animals. He found the fossils of hippopotamus similar to the present Taxodon and horse-like fossils which are similar to the Thontharium. Both of these animals are totally different from the animals of Argentina. Because 15 years ago the Spanish brought these horses from the South America to here, and there they become extinct. Because they was arrived from the South America, they had dissimilarities with the Argentina's animal. The second one is fossils similar with the animal. He found the fossils of giant armadillos and giant sloth. Both of these similarities have a major similarities with the Argentina's animal except of their size. These fossils are the main evidence of evolution for the Darwin. The fossils of the giant armadillos is also shown in this picture. The next is Galapagos Island. During his voyage, the Darwin also stayed on the Galapagos Island. The name of this island is after the name of tortoise. Galapagos means tortoise. Character of Galapagos tortoise. Weight 250 kg, his shell diameter 1 to 8 meter, and their ages are 200 to 250 years. In this island, Darwin found two types of tortoise. First, tortoise with longer neck and the tortoise with shorter neck. The tortoise with longer neck found in the dry region. The long neck is beneficial for the tortoise of dry region because they eat the leaves of higher trees as a food, so this long neck helps them to reach to these leaves. And the tortoise of the shorter neck found in the moist region. These shorter neck tortoise cannot survive in the dry land because they could not go to the higher trees. But the twist is that in spite of their differences, they have a common ancestor. They have common ancestor because these tortoise are linked from the mainland tortoise. Some tortoise of the mainland migrate toward the dry land over a long distance, and there they adopt themselves according to their environment. The second interesting thing which found on the island by Darwin was the Galapagos finches. In Galapagos Island, he found sparrow-like finches. The Galapagos finches arose from the mainland of America. Because of the food shortage, these finches migrate and diverge in many islands from the mainland. Total 14 types of finches arose from the ancestral group, and one group was found from the Cocos Island. When they diverge, they adapt themselves according to the environment. The bills of these finches bear different size and shape according to their dietary adaptation. The Galapagos finches provide the adaptive radiation. What is adaptive radiation? In order to the opening of a new habitat, the formation of a new form of species from their ancestor species. In the first diagram, we easily observe that how finches diverge from their ancestral group. All of these finches have a common ancestor, but they diverge according to the time with the passage of time. In the second diagram, we observe that the adaptive radiation. Finches have different size and shape of beak according to their dietary habits. Some have thick, some have thin, long, short beaks according to their dietary habitat. Our next goal is the theory of evolution by natural selection. Initially, Darwin was unable to know about the natural processes similar to the artificial. Means that Darwin did not know that how nature selects the fittest one as we get desired product from the artificial selection. Then he read the theory of Thomas, the principle of population. According to this theory, the geometric increase in population growth and arithmetic increase in food supply. Means the increase in population is in order of 2, 4, 8 and 16, while the food increase in order of 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10. means that the increase in population is much higher than the increase in food. Then Darwin realized that the same phenomena occur in the case of natural selection. Then he proposed a theory on the natural selection in 1844. Our next goal is natural selection. He proposed the theory of natural selection in 1844. In this theory, he proposed the four basic laws: overpopulation, heritable variations, struggle to survive, and adaptive trait. In overpopulation, organisms produce more offspring than can survive. They reproduce in geometric manner. For example, female oyster produce one lakh egg, but all egg will not get maturity. There is a competition between food, space, resources, and who win this competition can survive easily. The next one is heritable variation. Within a population, individuals have many traits. Means that some individuals have a strong gene, some have moderate, and some have a weak genes. And the best, fittest one can survive who have a strongest gene. They can survive because they win the competitions of the resources. For example, at the same time, both the longer and shorter neck was present. But only the longer neck survived because the nature selected them and shorter become extinct. In this, we easily observe that how nature selects the longer neck giraffe. The longer neck giraffe got their food from the higher tree while the shorter neck could not reach to the higher trees. Means they had the difficulty to attain the food and they become extinct. The next one is struggle to survive. There is a competition of water, food and other resources, so the individual who have a good trait win the competition of food, space and other resources and easily can survive because they adapt themselves according to their environment. The next one is adaptive trait. Individuals who have a maladaptive trait are less likely to reproduce and become easily eliminated from the nature. These all are about the theory of natural selection. The next goal is evolutionary thoughts after Darwin. Means after Darwin who presented the theories of evolution. Now in the modern world, the theory of Darwin known as the new Darwinism and the modern synthesis. After Darwin, a scientist Russell Wallace also have a research on the natural selection during the malarial fever. He also have a research on the natural selection. Darwin and Wallace have a very similar work because both have a work on the natural selection. But the Darwin got fame because his most of work depend upon the evidences, his experiences and also on the massive material. While the Wallace have no such evidences and have no massive material. So the Darwin got a lot of fame from his theory, while the Russell Wallace had not strong evidences and get not fame. This is all about the evolution and the historical perspective. Thank you students. Presented by Ayman Hanif.